Lori, and I am representing the Prairie Renaissance Cultural Alliance in Morris, Minnesota. Tonight we have Kristi Kuder, the artist of this lovely work. She is from Otter Tail Lake, Minnesota, and she is going to tell you a little bit about her process, the media that she uses, and a little bit of the story behind the work. Welcome, Kristi.
Thank you. I want to start off by saying thank you to PRCA for offering this space for me to show my work. I so appreciate it. I appreciate those volunteers who also dedicated their time to help me put this up, to help them to so that I could help them get it put together. It is so appreciated. I know how hard it is to get volunteers, and I really appreciate all that you have done. Thank you. To start off with about myself, I want to say that I'm from this area somewhat. I grew up in Breckenridge, Minnesota. I spent my summers at Otter Tail Lake, where my husband and I now are living. We raised our family down in the cities, and that was for about 35, 40 years, but we kept returning every summer to Otter Tail Lake. So I spent a little bit of time wrestling it out with my husband until we both agreed that this area is where we wanted to return to. I think that the prairie is in me. I think that the landscape, the space, this western part of Minnesota is a big part of my art. I think that my feelings come through in much of what I do through this landscape. I am by nature driven by fiber. I think that's probably a good beginning for a description of what a lot of my work is about. I work with fiber, and it started out as natural fiber. I used a lot of cottons and wools, knitting, sewing, weaving, basketry for many years. While I was raising my family, I spent a lot of time working with those natural fibers. And then I got into creating art quilts, and it grew into a way for me to develop ideas and develop processes. From that, I realized that I wanted to go beyond that. I wanted to say something, and I didn't really know. All along the time that I was raising my family, I was learning. I was trying things. I was experimenting. But until something dramatic happened in our lives, my husband's and my life, which was what happened is one of our sons developed a serious mental illness. He was diagnosed his senior year with schizophrenia. That hit me deeply. And it was that deep impact that caused me to make work that meant things to me. Up until that point, it was about process. It was about exploring. It was about making things. Once I realized that I had to say something, my art then grew immensely into something much more. And so a lot of what I'm showing here has to do with that impact. So my show is called, what is my show called? As I Sit, I Knit. And if you want to scope over here to this piece, this is something that is an ongoing process. I'm continuing to knit. The knitting is my working through the questions of trying to figure out answers. As I sit, I knit. And this thing is probably about 30 feet long, and it is continuing to grow because I still have not found answers to questions. I grew up believing and being told that as long as you keep working at it, if you keep digging into it, you're going to find an answer. You're going to find a solution. I didn't realize until we came upon this mental illness concern that some questions can't be answered. So this is a lot about my not knowing, about my not understanding what's going on. Excuse me, I just have a little bit of a cold and asthma as we go here. So, so as I started going into wire from my fiber, I realized that there's a lot in common with that wire. It can be woven, it can be knitted, it can be threaded and stitched into, it can be deconstructed. So many of these pieces became very interesting for me because I could break into it, I could tear it apart. And I think that this also harkens back to my connection to the landscape here, to the prairie, to the grasslands. And so I carry that into some of the deconstructed pieces that I have done. Similar to this, I don't know, none of you can see it, but I'm going to show you here. This piece here, I call Delphi. And I don't know if anybody know where Delphi comes from? The Delphi Oracle. It would be the Delphi Oracle, as what many of you probably know, was where the Greeks would go to find answers, and they would ask at the Delphi Oracle up in Greece on the island, what is the answer to this problem that I have? What help me? And the answer would always come in a riddle, and you had to figure out the riddle, and it was never clear. In fact, according to one story, the riddle caused the leader at the time, and I'm sorry, my stories are not clear in my head, other than the leader misinterpreted the riddle. And as a result, he lost his battle, he lost his country. So it's a matter of our trying to figure out riddles, trying to figure out problems that are not very clear, not very easy to decipher. So the wire was a big revelation for me. When I went from natural into wire, it suddenly brought in a lot of meaning in that it allowed me to explore liminal space, where there is a very unclear, divisive point where there's interior and exterior space. Where does the interior and the exterior end? So with wire mesh in these pieces, it caused me to think deeper into what I wanted to say. Liminal space became very exciting for me to explore in my work. And I think that as that progressed in time, I started thinking about what other things can be used to show that overlap, where the interior and the exterior become one, or where you can't tell the difference. And that's where I got into working with cyanotype. Cyanotype, if some of you aren't familiar with it, is a chemical process where I can't remember the two chemicals. When you mix them together, they become very light sensitive. And I think back in the early days, they used it to make blueprints. Architects had them. So that it's been around a long time. And only recently has it turned into becoming more of an art form. But what I like about it is that it creates an image of the present and the absence at the same time. The negative space, the absence, and yet it shows its presence. So those two overlap at the same time and through these. And the fact that it's blue is also very much a big part of the meaning for me, because blue is the unknown. We look up into the sky, when we look deep into the ocean, when we look at blue, it is that ethereal space where you just don't have an end. It continues on. And I think that that's why I am drawn to the blue. I wonder if I think also I would like to show you probably, I'm gonna go with, let's go with some of these, because you guys are all over here. Most recently, some of these pieces have also been intriguing to me, and this is done using encaustic waxes to draw into. And what I've been just recently been exploring is using the encaustic waxes along with some of the cyanotype to explore the process of liminal space. I like the wax. I love the layering. I love the depth that it provides. I just, in these, not all those who wander are lost. Again, it's that question of mastery. Searching. Please enjoy the searching, enjoy the not knowing. It is so uncomfortable for us now to not know. We have our cell phone to figure out the answer so quickly. As soon as we know the answer, we stop looking, we stop searching for other possibilities. And so I think to a certain extent, I like the idea of not knowing. I like the idea of being able to explore a little bit longer, being in that space a little bit longer. And so as much as it's hard to search for answers that you know you're not going to be able to easily find, there is something very valuable to being in that space because you learn so much more. And I think that's where I'm at. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
About the two ball pieces.
Sure. Well, while I was working with wire mesh in those pieces, I was working strictly with torching them, and that's where the markings have come on these. Strictly by torching them, burning into them, and that creates these beautiful, deep, coppery blue colors. When I wanted to bring more color in, I wasn't really able to go beyond that unless I adopted another medium. And so I started working with alcohol inks because I had started seeing some of the other artists out there using alcohol inks onto metal. And that's when I started going in that direction. And I think it's also something that adds to the movement of it. Microbes, these came about during the pandemic. I guess that's how come they are what they are. It's, yeah, you guys know what happened. Pandemic kind of puts that in your head as an artist. You start thinking, oh God, well, okay, what am I going to do about this? How am I going to address it? What am I going to do about it? And I've come up with some really weird things going on. But some of them I really, really like. These are two of them that I have enjoyed very much having. And doing. I think the alcohol ink it adds a whole nother another energy to it, but that's where it's at.
So talk about the process of that.
Sure.
Do you burn it and then
I first
alcohol?
burned it, yes.
Okay.
Good question. Yes. First burn in my images, my lines, and then after that's all burned in, and then I went in and filled in some of the spaces with the different things. Yep.
So Kristi, I apologize if someone already asked you this, but
Can you talk a little bit about the discs that are kind of floating in? Cause,
Yeah,
cause that's sort of an interesting part of.
Yes,
conversation we've
but-
had.
I'm gonna pull it out here. So these are each created by a process called eco-printing. And I know that you have some artists here who do that, who love to do that. I do too, and it brings in that aspect of connection to the land, connection to where we are. So that's how I did these. These are all done on silk, eco-printed onto silk. So when I started thinking about expressing this as a landscape, I just felt like these belong there. That's basically it. I have done them without it, but I kind of I like adding a little hovering, floating part of it. Which, yeah, when you don't see the fibers, it puts that, again, that liminal quality to it. Yeah, very much so.
Another process question.
Sure.
When do you apply when you're doing the monoprints? How do you apply the wax? Is that a process? Do you do the wax first and then the print, or do you do the print and
I
then
do
the
the
wax?
print
or do you-
first. Do the print first. Because see, cyanotype printing, you have to, I suppose it could be done like this. But the cyanotype print has to go through a very vigorous washing cycle. After it's been exposed, you have to run it through a washing cycle to develop it. It's a photographic process. And then after I've done that, once it's dry, and then I add the print of the wax in that particular one. That's how I did it.
And that one over there too.
And this one. Yeah. This one as well. Come on, hit me up with another question, guys.
So are those cyanotypes too on that wall, or are those?
Yes, those are also, well, they're manipulated images. So in this process, thank you for asking. What I did is I took a photo. If you haven't already figured it out, it's a snowbank. I've taken pictures of snowbanks, which I also find very intriguing because they don't stay. They move, they drift, they change, then they're gone. Then so with that, their presence and absence to me is very intriguing. I'm wandering the road with taking pictures of snowdrifts. And so I manipulated on the computer, I created a transparency that is then exposed with, so the paper is all through the cyanotype. I lay the printed transparency over it and expose it. The negative in these cases. Like that. And that creates the same.
Is it, because it says photo, but it was blue, so I would think it's.
Focused.
It's a bit of, yeah, it's both. So yeah, it doesn't have to necessarily be a object laid on it. It can also be a photographic process as well.
Do you do them in sun or do you do them with a machine?
So I don't have a machine.
They lay all over our yard. On sunny days.
Yeah, I have some, I've done it on fabric and I love doing it. And I've done some huge pieces. I did one for an installation that was, and I thought, hey, I can lay on the fabric for about 5-10 minutes and expose it. The flies usually. Oh, I gotta move. But it worked. It's pretty cool. And it's a great activity for your kids and grandkids. If you guys are looking for something, it is, it's really cool.
To lay on them or to do these kinds of?
Cyanotypes,
Yeah, with
create
flowers.
cyanotypes or with their bodies. Yeah, it's really good.
So is the progression working with metal, do the cyanotypes, did I understand, and then now you've added the acoustic?
Yes, I think you got it. I'm actually coming back to the wire because I really like working with
I
fire.
was just gonna ask. I'm happy if you ever come back.
I do. I've come back to the wire. I think it is the most intriguing and it expresses what are the most, I don't know. I mean, I love them all and I do a lot of stitching. I do a lot of different things. But the wire is I think something that speaks to some of that, what really makes it powerful is because it connects for me things that I'm dealing with. And it's not that I need it for therapy as much. I mean, I do. Art is therapy for everybody, right? But I think it's also just something that I feel like I need to share and say more about. Because I know people are, the pandemic hit everybody. And I think the pandemic created a lot of grief in us. We lost a lot. And so this is a part of that. This trying to figure out how to get back to normal, trying to figure out how to bring ourselves back to where we used to be. And we would, I don't know, there's just all kinds of things yet to be said.
Kristi, thank you so much for.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing whatever's next, Kristi.
Yes.
This is
Thank you.
exciting. So many different kinds of media and the textures and the almost monochromatic and whatnot. Yeah. It's
Thank you.
a very interesting show. Thank you for sharing it with us.